In 2021, the graphics card is now on the endangered species list, facing extinction from cryptocurrency miners. If you want to make one of these your pets, then you unfortunately will be met with exorbitantly high prices from scalpers on eBay. If you want to get one of these as your pets for cheap in 2021, what must you do? Let's discuss.
The GPU, aka the graphics card. In 2020, we saw the prices of graphics cards start slowly going up until the last month of the year in December, where it just started getting ridiculous. Now we're in the new year for 2021, and this is meant to be the year that's pegged as things will get better. But when we go and look on eBay and we go and look in our local markets and even retailers, they're all sold out of graphics cards pretty much. And in fact, the prices are going up all around the world for these parts because they're in such high demand. But we've already covered in the previous video where this extra demand is coming from, and that is from a lot of it from crypto miners looking to cash in on the recent Ethereum boom. But besides that, we're probably all wondering, well, if I'm just a gamer, when can I actually buy one of these graphics cards? Let's take a look at 3 key factors as to when graphics cards might return to a more normal price.
Today's video is brought to you by Intel, Zeus, and M-Wave.
Bringing you the ultimate gaming PC. At the thunderous core of this system is an Intel Core i7-10700KF, 8 cores and 16-threaded overclockable CPU that already goes to 5.1 GHz out of the box, powered by the ROG Strix Z490-G gaming Wi-Fi motherboard, which helps you get the most out of your gaming PC with uprated power delivery and optimized cooling for smooth FPS and cool operating temperatures. Intelligent controls let you manage overclocking, cooling, and networking settings easily, giving you everything you need to harness the full potential of your build for top-tier gaming performance. Links in description below if you're interested in getting a PC like this.
Let's try and give you guys some answers, because if you're like me, you're probably a bit anxious about this whole situation, because I love looking at prices and price performance within computers, and the price performance previously in the past to what we're getting right now is a lot better in the past, that is. Right now, it's abysmal price performance, especially on one front, and that's the graphics card. Now, the first reason, and this reason right now, is we're gonna go into this a little bit more, because there's actually like 3 little spirals from this first reason. That is demand for GPUs. Now, the first and obvious one is the demand from the COVID situation, where we've seen with COVID-19, we've seen everyone pretty much staying indoors a lot more than they otherwise would. And since then, international flights, for example, they've pretty much stepped down a lot, where it went from a projected 4.7 billion people flying every year down to 1.7 billion people. So the amount of people traveling is a lot less, and with that, of course, a lot of people staying indoors is a lot higher. And so the demand for things like a graphics card, like a TV, like all those communication devices like webcams, for example, they've all gone through the roof. And now this is one thing that artificial demand, that doesn't look like it's going away anytime quickly, where we've seen with the flights, for example, in Australia, there's a company called Qantas. They're an airliner. They've said from 2021, July, they're going to be reopening international flights. So that's kind of like an optimistic look on when international travel will kind of start up for Australia. I'm hoping that is the case, where some people are saying, oh, it's too soon to be making these kinds of promises. But at least in ways, it's kind of like an optimistic look on when a lot of us could get back to more sense of a normal life, or at least what we're used to previous COVID conditions. So then we've got the second reason within the first reason, and that is, of course, the actual demand on the cards themselves. So we've seen a shift over the last couple of years, and it's been getting more and more, where people are coming over from console gaming to PC gaming. And we've seen this with games like Fortnite especially. That's been a huge catalyst for the reason why people are jumping over to PC. And now within that, we've got that second wave of demand, because more people want to jump on PC. They're going to want to get a better graphics card and ultimately get a better experience. Now, but the funny thing is about that, the ironic thing is the PS5 and also the Xbox Series X have just been released, and they're suffering big supply issues just like PC parts or especially graphics cards in general. Now, the demand on GPUs, you're probably wondering why just the demand on GPUs? Why isn't the demand on, say, CPUs not as bad, or SSDs or RAM? And that's because the used market is definitely helping supplement that, and it's taking care of that, and a lot of people are reusing older PCs and just putting newer graphics cards in, and that is definitely helping alleviate the situation on other parts. So in ways, I guess I'm kind of thankful that at least all the parts for PCs haven't gone up in price. It's just the GPUs. Though now the third reason within this first category of demand is the fact that the RTX 3000, for example, and also the RX 6000 series from both NVIDIA and AMD, they're providing really big gains. And if you look at, say, a 6800 XT or a RTX 3060 Ti, for example, these cards are giving very solid, not just performance in that higher end gaming realm, they're also giving pretty solid value for money. And that's one thing that typically hasn't been in the high end before, or at least in the upper mid range. And so a $400 card, or a card if you can get it at MSRP of $400, that's really in offering pretty solid value to the point where demand for that card is a lot higher than it otherwise would be. Say for instance, RTX 2000 series cards, they weren't offering anywhere near the value that the RTX 3000 series cards are offering. Same with, in ways, the 5700 XT versus the 6800 XT. I mean, it's nearly pretty much double the performance, or over double the performance of a 6800 XT versus 5700 XT, but the price isn't double at MSRP as opposed to that 5700 XT. So that's one way of looking at things too. So we've seen better products being released, we've seen pretty much gamers coming to PC versus console, and then we've also seen COVID, which is just making the demand at an all-time peak high. So there's that first whole world of demand out the way, and if you guys are enjoying this new background here as well, let me know, because I repainted the whole setup here where it used to be like a dark red, and I was kind of like, man, with all this anxiety and stuff going on with the PC market, I kind of gotta at least focus on all the other things that I can make potentially more positive and more vibrant. And so that's what I'm trying to do here with this whole setup. So hopefully if you guys are enjoying this one, then be sure to let us know in the comments section below if you like this new setup here, which I've also added a bit more RGB in. But let's go into this second world here where I've made a heap of points here. And that is, of course, the crypto boom, where we're looking at Ethereum mainly being the culprit. Now, we did make a video on this talking about mainly how to deal with this whole crypto boom and how you can get a graphics card that isn't being targeted by miners so much as opposed to what the miners are actually targeting. I'll put the link up here where it's mainly the 4GB cards. If you can find them, they're going to offer, I guess, not as big as a premium as, say, a 3060 Ti, where people are scalping that on eBay and they're giving you horrid value for money based on what we've seen with the MSRPs. But at least if you're paying an absolute premium of, say, $40 on an RX 570, where it used to be 80, now it's 120, versus, say, a 3060 Ti being 400, now it's like 650, absolute terms we're paying $40 versus $250. So really, we're getting a lot better percentage in terms of the $40 versus $250. So I'm trying to help you guys out here with a little bit of math on what the best course of action to take is through this roller coaster. And so that's just my thoughts on that. But we're seeing with crypto, essentially what's happening is Ethereum mainly. It's an ASIC resistant cryptocurrency where people are otherwise using what would typically be intended for gaming, or the gaming graphics cards, and they're using them for mining. And the problem here is it's not just mum and dads or average guys like you and me going out and buying a couple, maybe 3 or 4 even, or maybe 10. It's actual corporations and people with big pockets who are going out and spending a lot of money and making massive mining farms. And so when they do that, they're taking a lot of GPUs off the shelves that otherwise would go to gamers, and they're using them just for simply making profits. And this is going to tie in perfectly with the next section that we're going to talk about soon, because I believe reason 2 and reason 3 are going hand in hand here and creating much more of a bloated market than we otherwise would get if we didn't have reason 3. But one thing I will say about this is, this crypto boom, will it go bust in the next 6 months? And this time around, it feels like it's a lot different than it was in 2018. Like in 2018, I was confident that it was going to go down. And I was telling people on my channel, look, sell your crypto now. This time around, I don't know the variables. I'm not used to them. I haven't seen them before. I don't think we've ever seen a bubble or a market like this. And would you even call it a bubble? Because this time around, we've got really poor economic conditions worldwide, yet we're seeing the highest levels we've seen in terms of stock valuations. We're seeing governments just handing out money despite stock valuations being super high. The way the economy is being handled this time, I have no idea how to interpret it, as opposed to 2018, where I just saw, okay, a lot of people are getting into crypto. It's going to be simply a boom and bust cycle, and prices will drop, and naturally GPU prices will drop with that, because the demand for GPUs versus crypto will go down too. And so lo and behold, in 2018, things did come crashing down, and RX 570s, 470s, 480s, all those cards that were used for crypto just flooded the market. Even GTX 1070s, 1060s, it was just a flood of GPUs on the market. This time around, it feels like this run could, as opposed to crashing in 2018, it could crash a lot more slower, and that wouldn't make it really a crash, would it? In turns, it could just go down slowly as people mine up and sell crypto, or it could, if the government slowly put the brakes on stimulus, it could go down slowly as opposed to crashing. And I mean, on that note of graphics cards, the funny thing about this was, I'll never forget 2017, the end of that, and the start of 2018, I had a Vega 56 in a gaming PC, and I was putting I think I put the gaming PC up for sale for, it was like 1,400 Aussie dollars or something, which at the time would have been maybe 1,000 USD or something like that. And someone sent me a message and they said, look, I'll give you $1,000 for your Vega 56. Just pull it out and give it straight to me. And I was scratching my head. I'm like, wow, that's a lot just for a GPU. So I just quickly took the GPU out and sold it to the guy and never heard back from him again. But that was kind of like the crazy demand for crypto at that time, where people were just messaging people with gaming PCs and just paying stupid amounts of money for those graphics cards. And lo and behold, I mean, in hindsight, I'm guessing a lot of people that were in that crypto boom went bust just with the bust came around. So do remember this, and don't forget this. One thing I'll tell you guys about all this crypto stuff and all these prices is there's always a loser for every winner. And don't forget that. And someone wins big. Say, for instance, someone bought a Bitcoin at $100 and they sold it for $50,000. That's Australian. And I think it went up to like 40,000 US or something. So if they did that, they took $39,000 off someone else, or $39,900. And so that money has come from somewhere. And now people are essentially buying that crypto based on the fact that someone else is going to buy it later on for a higher price. Now, if that higher price dictates the value of a US dollar, for example, or an Aussie dollar, that remains to be seen where that value will go. So that's the hardest part. People are pretty much buying these cryptocurrencies directly based on the fact that they think that the value of the dollar essentially will devalue faster than their price of the Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency they're holding will outpace that. So that's the trade-off that they're making. And it's a logical one if governments keep doing, and then we're going to segue into the third reason here, printing money. And that's when the money printer goes brr. In Australia alone, the government in 2020, I believe they printed over 10% of GDP. And that's gross domestic product. That's all money changing hands and exchanges. In 2020, the government accounted for over 10% of that. It's a record in history for our country. And since a lot of that money was borrowed from the Federal Reserve, or the Australian Federal Reserve Bank of Australia, that money essentially is owned by the government. Because the government owns the Federal Reserve banks, they're essentially borrowing themselves money. And so this is one of the complications that people are coming into now, is where is this money going? Now, historically, if we look back to, say, 1871 in France, there was a stimulus that went through their economy, and a lot of that money went to miners of silver and gold first. And so they were the people who benefited a lot more than others in society because they got the money first. Now, in 2020 and 2021, we know that the money is going mainly to institutional banks first, and a lot of other big players in the money market. And so since they're getting the money first, they have an advantage. And that's why in turn, I believe now you're seeing the prices of crypto go up as well as stock markets, because these two investment vehicles are heavily favored by those who are receiving this money first. Though you may be wondering the last point here, and that is what's printing money from governments got to do with GPU prices directly, Brian? And this is where the part of cheaper money comes into effect. Essentially, when governments are creating more and more money than they've ever created in history out of essentially thin air, that's flowing into the economy one way or the other. And the argument here is the easier that money flows in, the easier prices of things will go up, including graphics cards, and especially graphics cards, since they are a very highly desired product for people right now due to demand and the COVID-19 factors surrounding what's going on in the world right now. And so there it all is out on the table for you guys. I like to always be straight up with you guys in terms of my recommendations and what information I provide here at Tech Yes City. And this one just really does bother me like it's never bothered me before in the history of my life, actually, to the point where I just don't know exactly how this is going to pan out, because there's two sides of the fence. And the scary thing was, before all this 2020 stuff went down, there was signs of deflation happening in the economies worldwide. This wasn't just exclusive to America. It was in Australia, and all sort of countries were following what Japan experienced post 1989. And so is this a new trend, right? Are we looking at trends here? Because I do like to look at trends. And what we see is that perhaps over the last 100 years, people are comfortable with a car. They're comfortable driving. So cars are sort of a staple in our economy. People are happy with a house of a certain size. People are happy with certain diets and certain ways of living that perhaps they don't want to progress, like GDP and economic growth models would suggest. And so that's maybe something that the, I guess, governments and also planners of financial institutions haven't really thought about in depth, because when you look at those trends and you look at what's going on, printing money isn't the solution to everything. And so essentially, when we look at what's going on around the world and we look at prices of commodities as well, metals, they're all going up in price, we can then say, okay, is these GPU prices, the artificial high GPU prices that we're seeing, are they here to stay, and how long are they here to stay for? And my gut says that unfortunately, as long as the prices of pretty much everything is artificially high right now, is that going to transverse into a new norm? Is government spending and stimulus going to catch up to those new norm prices? And that's one thing you just can't predict. If I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you guys straight out. But for what it stands this time around, as in terms to previous years, this time around, this one really bothers me as to the future of, I guess, GPU prices in general too, because we've seen the likes of Asus, for example. They've said that they're raising prices of components, not just GPUs, but other things like motherboards, indefinitely due to higher taxes being imposed on American imports. But I believe there's other factors as well, rising costs of materials and everything else, which does affect businesses and then does push up prices. So it's all a cycle that's linked to one another, and in the end will spell higher prices of GPUs for you and I. And so with the GPU prices and making a prediction, this time around, I can say that it's only going to go down, the GPU prices that is, when this demand goes down, and also the demand that's being driven by cryptocurrency as well as government stimulus. And so all these three factors that we talked about here today, only when they go down can we see prices of GPUs go down. And so how long that's going to stay for, I mean, look, it could be 6 months before we realistically see prices of GPUs come back to what would be considered normal compared to previous years pre-2020. But on the bright side, we can hope for a crypto bust. Fingers crossed that a crypto bust comes. And if that comes, we could see a flood of GPUs on the market again, just like we did in 2018. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to slap that like button for us. Also, if you've stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content, then be sure to hit that sub button or ring that bell, because we are back in action here. I've got this whole new setup. I've done this background right here, this backdrop. I've reinvigorated it. I've also added RGB to my main setup with like opal acrylic panels. I've also made 2 new setups for filming B-roll. So even though I had a big break and I scheduled out videos for you guys, I have been busy kind of making a new revamp for 2021, where the good news is out of all this is that we're going to be going anti-crypto in what we build in terms of PCs. Because one thing's for sure, as we said before with the crypto mining is the way to get around it, is to pay the least premium we have to if you want a PC game at the moment. And so that is looking like 4 gigabytes of VRAM and under, and you just have to make those sacrifices. That is if you don't want to get ripped off. Anyhow, I'll catch you guys in another tech video very soon. The next one's going to be pretty spicy, so stay tuned, and peace out for now. Bye.
Oh